Welcome in to another edition of Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. I'm Kyle Glaser, going solo tonight as we bring you a special draft preview edition of Friar Territory, looking ahead to who the Padres will take with the 25th overall pick in the draft, as well as taking a look at what is likely to happen at the top in a very, very interesting and very, very uncertain draft, and also take a look at some of the players with San Diego area ties who are likely to hear their names called. The first round of the draft is coming up. It starts on Sunday. And the draft is always a time where teams are so excited to bring new talent into their organization. And the Padres, in particular, are a team that puts a lot of emphasis on the draft. AJ Preller and his group come from an amateur scouting background. They are as hands-on as any in the industry in terms of GMs, top-level assistant GMs, special assistants, etc. They have been scouring the country. They've been looking at all the players, and a few favorites have emerged. We're going to talk about who the Padres are looking at closely and who they're likely to take with the 25th overall pick, as well as look at some of the backup options and what will happen if the board in front of them doesn't go the way they expect. In terms of the Padres, there are certain preferences that every organization has. In the Padres' case, they have a strong affinity for high school left-handed pitchers and high school position players who are left-handed hitters. If you go back from AJ Preller's first draft in charge of the team, in 7 of the 9 years, the Padres have taken either a high school left-handed pitcher or a left-handed hitting high school position player. Those are the demographics they really like, really dial in on, really value, and really project to have the highest upside and impact for their club. The other thing about the Padres is they have a strong affinity for players from the South, players from Georgia, Tennessee, North Carolina. That's where a lot of their top picks have come from. Sometimes they'll go a little further up the mid-Atlantic to Maryland. Sometimes they'll go a little bit further west to Oklahoma, but generally speaking, their top picks almost always come from the eastern half of the country and are particularly concentrated in the South. This year's a little bit of a different dynamic. The Padres have been spending a lot of time up in the Pacific Northwest. That's where a lot of their top decision makers have been spending a lot of their time. That's where they've been sending a lot of the people who will have the loudest voices in the draft room, the people who will have the power to say, this is who we should take, and ultimately persuade the room. They've been sending in their heavy hitters to the Pacific Northwest, and they have been spending a lot of time up there. There are 2 players in particular the Padres have been focused in on for the 25th overall pick. Oregon high school left-handed pitcher Cruz Schoolcraft, and Washington high school third baseman Xavier Nyans. I want to start with Cruz Schoolcraft, just a quick overview of who he is and what he possesses and why the Padres are interested. Schoolcraft is a 6'8" left-handed pitcher. Fastball sits 93-94. He's been up to 97-98. Has a future plus changeup that will be a swing and miss pitch. His breaking ball is a little hit or miss. There are times he shows you a good 2-plane slider with some teeth to it, but there's a lot of other times it's just not a very effective pitch. Both the spin and the shape need some work, but that's what player development is for. And what's particularly interesting about Schoolcraft is even though he's 6'8" and has long limbs, he's a really good athlete with good body control. He repeats his delivery, throws strikes. That's pretty rare to see from a high school kid as gangly as he is. So there's a lot to like with Cruz Schoolcraft. Xavier Nyans is a power hitter at his core and someone that a lot of teams consider to be maybe the best pure power prospect among high school hitters in the Western United States. Xavier Nyans, 6'4", 215 pounds, going to play third base, more than fine over there. But what you're buying is the power. At the end of the day, if everything goes the way most teams hope it will and think it will, there's a real chance he's a 30 home run middle of the order masher. Like most young power hitters, he does have some swing and miss to his game. And he did swing and miss a little more at the tail end of the summer showcase circuit than maybe you'd like. At the same time, there's a lot of belief that with his swing, just his natural hitting gifts, he will make enough contact to get to his power and ultimately be an impactful hitter. And when you look at the players in this draft who figure to be available at 25 in that range, these are the 2 the Padres have really dialed in on. As of right now, if you were to make the projection today, Cruz Schoolcraft would be the projected Padres pick at number 25 if he is there. And that's the big qualifier. So, first and foremost, Schoolcraft is represented by Scott Boras and Boris Corp and will not come cheap. He has a commitment to Tennessee. And one of the more interesting dynamics of the draft now, of course, is NIL money. When it comes to college baseball, NIL money flows overwhelmingly to the SEC. So, anytime you're talking about kids with SEC commitments, there's a high likelihood there's some real NIL heft behind those commitments. And as a result, major league teams aren't going to be able to get a lot of those kids for underslot deals. When you're talking about Schoolcraft, again, having Boris going to Tennessee, he's going to cost a significant amount of money. This is not a kid you're going to be able to get under slot. Figures to be slotted and might be over slot. And that's something the Padres have shown that they're willing to do, go over slot to get the player they like and the player they want. It's just going to be a matter of, is Cruz Schoolcraft still there at 25? There are a lot of teams picking ahead of the Padres who like him. This is a very, very, very highly sought after left-handed pitcher who could go in the middle of the first round very, very easily. No one would be surprised. Most projections, just the way this draft is shaking out, there seems to be at least a solid chance he'll be there at 25. And if he is, again, if you were to mock it out today, he would be the player you give to the Padres at that pick. He would probably be the player they select. But there's a real chance he won't be there. And that's where Xavier Nyans comes in. Nyans is the other player the Padres have really, really, really focused and dialed in on. And he is likely to be there at the back half of the first round. I mentioned some of the swing and miss concerns. That's why he's not a top half of the first round prospect as of right now. He's more of a back of the first round prospect. If Cruz Schoolcraft isn't there, and to be clear, he's option A for the Padres. But if he's not there, if he gets taken before the 25th pick, I would expect the Padres to pivot to Xavier Nyans. Again, someone that they have scouted heavily, someone that they like a lot, someone their top decision makers are on board with, and have seen a lot of and have spent a lot of time on and have really drilled down on him. I think realistically, when we come Sunday, it will be one of those two players that are entering the Padres system. We will see how it all shakes out. Whenever you pick down near the bottom of the first round, all sorts of craziness can happen ahead of you. The players you like get taken. You have to scramble a little bit. We'll see what the Padres end up doing. But once again, keep an eye on Schoolcraft and Nyans as the Padres' potential picks at the 25th overall spot. We have a lot more to talk about here in this draft preview. We're going to take a look at what's going on at the top of the draft, who the Nationals will take number 1, who the Angels will take number 2, what the latest buzz is there. And we're also going to take a look at who are some of the players with San Diego area ties that have a very, very, very good chance to hear their names called fairly early on in the draft. We're going to take a quick break, hear a word from our sponsors, and we'll jump right into it.
Hey, let's do a little player spotlight thanks to Arena Club. AJ, give me a player this season that you think is underrated and you might want to try and grab his card.
James Wood. I don't know that he's underrated, but Washington Nationals superstar in the making, and the first slab pack I ever opened had him in it. His rookie card, and the value is only going to go up and up and up. And I'm not going to sell it quite yet, Scott. I'm going to hold on to it because after he continues to hit big homers and put up the stats, make all-star teams, it's going to get more expensive for someone to buy for me.
This is his first full season in the majors. Keep that in mind. I think he's underrated. He's on a Nationals team that's meh. Not getting enough attention.
He might hit underrated 40 homers. When he makes the All-Star team this year, they're not going to be underrated.
That helps. He's been intentionally walked 4 times in a game. Anyway, if you want to try and find a Wood rookie card, go check out slab packs on Arena Club. And right now you can get 20% off your first slab pack, or if you just want to go with a card purchase, go to arenaclub.com/FOUL. Use code FOUL. If you buy, sell, trade, collect, go for it.
Welcome back to Friar Territory. I'm Kyle Glaser. Before the break, we talked about who the Padres are targeting with the 25th overall pick. But what happens in front of them is going to play a big, big, big role in who's actually there. So we're going to take a look at what's expected to happen at the top of the draft and the ramifications for what that means for the rest of the top 10 into picks 10 to 20 and potentially the back of the first round as well. This is a fascinating draft in that there's not a clear-cut number 1 overall prospect. And with that, there's not a clear-cut player that scouts universally are very, very, very high on. There's no Adley Rutschman or Bobby Witt Jr., which we saw in the 2019 draft, where Adley Rutschman in college, everyone loved him. Bobby Witt Jr. in high school, everyone loved him. There were no questions about these guys' ability and the fact they were studs and projected to be impactful major league players. Even you go back to the 2023 draft with Paul Skeens, but also Dylan Cruz and Wyatt Langford. They were universally liked by scouts. They were universally seen as impact players. It was just a matter of who goes number one. The Pirates ended up taking Paul Skeens, and they are reaping the rewards of that decision in a big way. This draft doesn't have that. Every player is divisive. There's a sense there probably isn't that standout level player. There's a lot of good players in this draft, but there's not really that standout all-star, potentially even franchise caliber player in this year's draft class. And because of that, it's murky who's going to go number one. The Nationals hold the number one overall pick, and the last two times they had the number one overall pick, they had generational talent at the top of the draft to pick from. Steven Strasburg and Bryce Harper. There's no one near that caliber in this year's draft class. So they have a very interesting decision to make. Do they go with who they think the best talent on the board is, or do they try and find an underslot deal? The other dynamic that's very, very interesting and has really thrown a wrench into everyone's expectations for the draft was the Nationals' decision to fire GM Mike Rizzo. They also fired manager Davey Martinez, of course, but firing Mike Rizzo a week before the draft has thrown a lot of uncertainty into the equation. And what's really, really interesting about this is when Mike Rizzo was the GM, Seth Hernandez, right-handed pitcher from Corona High School, was very, very much in play as the number one overall pick. And that's notable because no high school right-hander has ever been taken number one overall. It is far and away the riskiest demographic in the draft. There is a long, long, long list of busts. And also a sense from most teams that the best chance to get an everyday position player is up top. And the difference between high school right-hander number one, high school right-hander number 10 actually isn't that large of a gap if you look historically. There are a number of teams out there who refuse to take high school right-handers in the first round, just outright will not do it. But under Mike Rizzo, the Nationals were never afraid to buck convention with their first round picks. They weren't afraid to go get high school right-handers who needed Tommy John surgery at a time when other teams were hesitant to do that. They weren't afraid to pick junior college pitchers in the first round. They weren't afraid to pick pitchers who had really, really, really bad makeup concerns in the first round that other teams wouldn't touch. I'm referring, of course, to Lucas Giolito, Jackson Rutledge, and Seth Romero. Again, when Mike Rizzo was in charge, the Nationals weren't afraid to go against the grain. And Seth Hernandez was very much in play. And there was a very real chance they were going to go against the grain and make history, making him the number one overall pick. Now that Mike Rizzo is no longer there, that calculus has changed. Within the industry, there is a lot of belief that Cade Anderson, the left-hander from LSU, will be the Nationals pick at number one overall. Anderson had an excellent College World Series that, in the minds of some evaluators, gave him just that little edge over everyone else in the draft class that maybe he is the number one guy in this draft. But again, no one feels that way with any sense of conviction. It's very, very, very muddled at the top. But it is fair to say that if you were projecting it today, the expectation is Cade Anderson would be the number one overall pick. A lot can change between now and Sunday, all sorts of behind-the-scenes machinations, contract negotiations. If the Nationals decide they want to try and do an underslot deal somewhere, there's all sorts of things that can happen. But as of right now, you would say Anderson would probably be the number one overall pick. That is seen as the most likely outcome. The Angels at number two are another interesting team here. There's a very, very, very talented collection of high school shortstops in this year's draft class. Ethan Holiday, the son of Matt Holiday, and younger brother, of Jackson Holiday. Eli Willits, the son of former Angels outfielder Reggie Willits, and Billy Carlson, Seth Hernandez's teammate at at Corona High School. But the Angels are very, very, very heavily tied to Ieva Arquette, Oregon State shortstop. I actually wrote Arquette up out of high school in Hawaii, and he was a very, very talented prospect then that a lot of teams were interested in out of high school, made his way to college, started his college career at Washington, ended up at Oregon State. And he is one of the best power hitters in this year's draft class. Talking to evaluators who have seen him, there's a real sense that he has a chance to be on the 20 to 80 scouting scale, a 50 grade hitter with 60 to 65 grade power. What that equates to statistically is a 250, 260 hitter with 30 to 35 home run power. That's an impact player that you can stick in the middle of your order. And what makes Arquette really, really interesting even more so is he's 6'5", but he actually plays a pretty good shortstop. He moves naturally there. He's got the arm for the position, the feel of the instincts, the actions. Generally speaking, there are no 6'5" shortstops that come out of the draft. And historically, players 6'5", you just move into third base. But we have seen recently teams have been more willing to give taller players a chance to play shortstop in the majors. Now, there are international signees, not draftees, which is a bit of a different dynamic. But you look at the Pirates with O'Neill Cruz. Again, he's in the outfield now, but he did play shortstop for them for a few years. You look at Ellie De La Cruz with the Reds. Again, both guys who very, very much exceed the quote unquote optimal height for shortstops. And in the past would have been moved, but they have been able to stick at the position. Arquette isn't quite the same freak level athlete those guys are, but at the same time, it's not out of the question he sticks at shortstop. Even if he has to move to third base, he projects to be a great defender over there who, again, hits for average, hits for power, and is an impactful player. There's a lot of expectation in the industry that Iowa Arquette will be the Angels pick at number 2. What happens after that is anyone's guess. Again, we talked about 3 high school shortstops. There's some really good college pitchers available as well. Jamie Arnold, Liam Doyle. It's going to be a wild first round. This is going to be one of those drafts where there's most likely going to be a pick or two that makes people say, wow, I did not expect him to go this high. There's also probably going to be a few players who slide that no one expected to slide. There is no universal consensus in this draft. All the players I just talked about, there are scouts who are high on them and like them and believe in them. And there are a lot of scouts and top decision makers with really good track records who are kind of meh on them. There's no wow player in this draft. There's no signature standout. There's no player that projects to be that perennial all-star franchise caliber player. A player like that will likely emerge at some point, but it's not like there's one that's clearly that player right now. And as a result, this should be a wild top of the draft, and that will have ramifications through the middle of the first round and down to the back of the first round where the Padres pick. We will see how much it affects them, if at all. We're going to take one more quick break here. Here's some words from our sponsors, and then we're going to dive into who some players with San Diego area ties are that are likely to hear their name called. Again, lots of good talent in this draft, including a couple that you may be familiar with if you're from the San Diego area.
Kratz, we talk about HelloFresh a lot, but in the same fam is another option for you if you're looking to go on your little wellness journey or you're very picky in terms of what you're looking for ingredients-wise. You can go Green Chef this summer.
And I can heat and eat because this summer I've got like 3 days where I'm not doing anything, and sure those are going to get scheduled with something. Let's give me something super quick that I can heat up. The whole family's eating healthy and they're full.
Menus change weekly, 80-plus dietitian-approved weekly meal options. Green Chef makes it easy to find those meals to fit your lifestyle, so go check it out. FT fam, there is an exclusive offer. Make this summer your healthiest yet with Green Chef. Head to greenchef.com/50territory and use code 50territory to get 50% off your first month, then 20% off for 2 months with free shipping. That's code 50territory at greenchef.com/50territory.
Welcome back into Friar Territory here on the Foul Territory Network. I'm Kyle Glaser. As we talked about before the break, this is going to be a wild first round with a lot of things happening that no one predicted. We talked about who the Padres are targeting with the 25th overall pick, who you would project them to take today. But again, a lot can change between now and Sunday, and especially in a draft like this where so much is unknown at the top. We'll see who's there. There are a few players in this draft class that have San Diego ties that I do want to draw attention to. First among them is Tyler Bremner. He's a right-handed pitcher at a UC Santa Barbara, went to Scripps Ranch High School, and out of high school did have some significant draft interest. Ultimately, his commitment to Santa Barbara convinced a lot of teams not to pick him. He became a gaucho, and like many, many others who have gone into that program, has emerged as one of the top college pitchers in the draft class. Tyler Bremner, simply put, has it all. He's a good athletic right-hander with an easy delivery. Fastball, it sits in the mid-90s. He's up to 97. Has a changeup that not only projects to be a swing and miss pitch, but maybe one of the best changeups in baseball at its peak. It gets 70 grades on the 20 to 80 scouting scale, a truly, truly potentially elite pitch. And he's not just a fastball changeup right-hander. He's got a good breaking ball, depending on who you talk to, average to above average. So it's a 3-pitch mix, an athletic, easy delivery. He holds his velocity. And the best part is he fills up the strike zone. absolutely pounds the strike zone with all of his pitches. When you think about Tyler Bremner and everything he has, you'd say, why isn't he going in the top 10? Going into the season, he had an opportunity to. He was considered potentially the best college pitcher in the class. He got off to a really slow start this year. And the way a lot of teams scout is they go in, see some guys early, at least their top decision makers do. Then they have to move on. They have to go see everyone else around the country. So if a guy has a bad outing in front of some of those top decision makers, sometimes he tends to fall in their minds. They don't necessarily circle back. Bremner had a slow start. It happens. He kicked it into gear and finished the season on fire. And you look at what he did over the course of the season, had an excellent year. And once again, what he did the second half of the season, the people who stayed on him, the teams that stayed on him, saw the pitcher that had a chance to be a top 10 overall pick coming into the year. Right now, if you were to mock it out, just talking to teams around the league, there's a sense he'll probably go in the top half of the first round. It might be picked 12 to 15, somewhere in that range. There's some other places I'm seeing out there that are putting him 25th, 24th, 23rd. There's not really a sense that he's actually going to get there. He's very, very likely going to be gone by the time the 20s come around. He will likely be picked in the teens and has a very, very, very good chance to go in the top half of the first round in that 12 to 15 range, maybe even a tick higher, depending on how the draft plays out in front of him. The other player with area ties is Gavin Feen, third baseman out of Great Oak High School in Temecula. And yes, Temecula is not San Diego County. It is not San Diego. But we know that there are a lot of people who are San Diegans who moved up to Temecula. A lot of people live in Temecula, commute down to San Diego, and culturally they identify as San Diegans. And when it comes to sports, they root for San Diego sports teams. So we will loop Gavin Feen in with this group. At various points last summer, Gavin Feen looked like he might be the best pure hitter in the high school class. Feen's a third baseman, big, physical, beautiful swing when he's right, can hit for average, hit for power, really has a chance to be a standout middle of the order hitter and a very good third baseman as well. This spring, some things went backwards. Just didn't have the best senior season, and that happens sometimes. The swing wasn't as good as scouts felt like it was last summer. The approach wasn't as good as scouts felt like it was last summer. But the talent's in there. He's shown it. People have seen it. There's a lot of faith that if he gets into pro ball, once the pressure's off, he'll get back to being who he was. Again, coming into the year, there was a sense he had a chance to go top 10 overall. Now there's a sense it might be more the teens, and realistically, it could even be the back half of the first round as opposed to the top half of the first round. Nonetheless, it's a very, very, very talented hitter that a lot of teams have interest in, and especially the ones who believe that their summer showcase look was more who he is than his senior spring look. They're going to take him and be more than happy to have him. And if they do get him in the middle to back of the first round, there's going to be some teams out there who felt like they got a steal. Once again, we will see what happens. This is going to be an incredibly wild draft, and I encourage everyone to check it out. There's a lot more good stuff to come. We've got another special edition of Friar Territory coming up this week on Friday with a brand new co-host. I will wait to do a grand reveal there, but make sure you tune in Friday to check it out. We have a lot to talk about with the Padres heading into the All-Star break. And of course, next week we will recap who they end up taking with the 25th overall pick, how their draft is playing out as a whole, and look ahead to the trade deadline. This is a great time to subscribe. Go ahead, click that like button, click that subscribe button. YouTube, Apple, Spotify, whatever platform you're watching and listening on. We would love to hear from you. I'm Kyle Glaser. Thank you again for watching and listening. We'll see you on Friday.